Hey guys, Andrew here. Just wanted to say sorry for not having any new videos for last week. I've been dealing with some stuff back home and really haven't had a chance to record anything new or edit what I already have. So what that means for you guys though is you get this super awesome video ahead of schedule. Woo. Anyway, so this video is my first tutorial and I'm going to teach you guys how to create an all-over repeat pattern in Illustrator and Photoshop. Please let me know if there's anything I can do to make this easier to understand, if I need to go faster, slower, if I need to go more in depth, whatever. Feel free to leave any critiques in the comments, and feel free to follow me on any of my social channels. You can find links for all of those in the description. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the video, hope you learned something. Thanks. Bye. Okay, so I'm starting out in Illustrator and I'm using the rounded rectangle tool. So when you first start, you can, before you release the shape, you can adjust how rounded the edges are with the plus or the minus key. So I've done that to make it pretty rounded, to make it almost an oval, but a little like it still has straight sides on it, which is what I want for like the scale mail pattern. And then I'm copying it and then just Command D to do the same action again and again to get those, group them together, then I'm copying those and moving those around. Right now you're seeing it's a really sped up version where I messed around with the size and the shape, and then I'm deleting all of the insides of the overlapping shapes to create kind of that scale mail pattern. Okay, so this might be the most important part of making a repeat pattern. So you're going to draw a transparent box, no outlines or anything, around where you want your repeat to be, and make sure it kind of lines up on both sides. With geometric shapes, it's pretty easy to do. And then once you do that, you're going to select the box you just made and your pattern, do a clipping mask. Then you're going to copy and paste that same box that you drew behind your clipping mask, and you're going to select all of it and drag it up to the swatches menu. And then once you get it up there, get the shape tool, and then you will make a bigger shape off to the side of what you're working on, and fill it with the swatch that you just made, just to make sure, double check, make sure your pattern doesn't have any wonky areas or any spots that don't line up, because you want to fix that. Hey guys, this is Andrew. So this is the third setup for the GoPro, and it finally works well, because the last couple ones when I was recording, I found out that if I like leaned over what I was working on, you couldn't see it at all. And then I also realized that my first setup, you were seeing way up here at a frame, so you really couldn't see when I did this originally. So I'm gonna do kind of like one of those like cooking shows, like here's how we do it, and then voila, it's done like 2 minutes later. So I want to show you guys how I created this all over repeat pattern. It's kind of all I did was I went into Illustrator, made the basic shapes of just the little like scales, and then to get the texture, what I did was I took some of this Duralar. It's like a wet media acetate, so it's just a clear plastic sheet basically, but you can use ink on it and all sorts of stuff on it. And so I took that, put that over the over my scale pattern, and I eventually did this. So I'm going to show you guys down here in this little area kind of how I did it. So I flipped this paper over because if I put the wet media acetate over it, it's kind of hard to tell because of how dark the print is. It's kind of hard to tell where I go over it with the ink. So I'm going to flip it over just so it's a little bit lighter. You guys might not be able to see it, but or you can put like a thin sheet of white paper in between the two if you want to do that instead. But this is just what I'm going to do to show you guys. So I'm going to tape the wet media acetate down before I start because I don't want it moving around. So I'll put some tape there. there. We'll leave it like that. So I'm just going to do a few of these just to kind of show you guys what I did before. Then I'm using Speedball ink. I really have no preference what kind of ink. I think it was the cheaper one when I bought it. So yeah. So I've got my pen, dip in the ink, test it out over here, make sure it doesn't have too much on it. Might need to get some more actually. And then just kind of go like that. Okay. Now I'm ready to start inking this. So I just kind of follow the scale pattern. And I don't care, for this particular pattern, what I wanted to use it for, I didn't mind if it was a little bit rough. So I wasn't trying to get super smooth lines every single time. It just plays better with kind of the aesthetic that I'm going for in the illustration I'm using this on. Okay, so that's probably enough to show you guys kind of how to get this texture that I got up here in this top one. So clean off my pen real quick. So the brush I used was this one. It's just kind of like a really cheap brush you can get at the hardware store, like probably $1 or cheaper. And I just kind of got a little bit of ink on there. And then you can kind of mess around on the side with it, so you can do stuff like that. And so you can see, I might have to move it closer to the camera, but you can see kind of some of the edges you can get with this, but I want to make sure that I'm dry brushing it to get something similar to that. So I'm going to keep just making marks over here. And the great thing is I can scan these marks in later and turn them into, I can make them into, what was I going to say? Photoshop brushes. So I can get some cool little like ink brushes that way. So don't be surprised if you see some of these shapes showing up in my next brush pack. Actually, I'm starting to think that that was not the brush I used, so I'm going to set it aside. I think I have the right brush now. Sorry guys. Okay, so that brush is kind of clean. There we go, that's the one. Okay, so you can kind of see those two marks. They're kind of like dry brush looking, so that's what I want. So now I'm going to take my brush, and since it's about half of the width of these, I'll just go like this and just kind of follow the shape. Might take a couple go arounds, but something like that. And do it again there. Get a little bit more ink in that, make sure it's pretty dry by the time I actually start using it. So yeah, you can kind of see how I've gotten that texture going on in there. And then basically what I would do with this, kind of like how I did with this top one, is I'll scan that back in and then go into Photoshop, use the offset filter. It's at the very bottom, and then I'll offset it so I can get the sides and the top and bottom to match up so that it's a seamless repeat. And I'll show you guys how to do that in the following screen recording. So check that out if you want to see the whole process through. And yeah, hope you like it. Okay, so at this point I've scanned in the pattern, and then I'm going to select it. This is in Photoshop, by the way. So then I'm going to select it and move it to a new document. So I just turned the background layer into a separate layer from background, so I can cut and paste it into a new document. So then I use the selection tool, or you can just hit M on your keyboard as the shortcut, and then you can take that, bring it into your new document, and then once you have it in your new document, use the crop tool, and then you can start rotating it and make sure that it's pretty straight and lines up with all the little grid that appears. And then you're going to crop it to kind of where you want it to repeat, similar to how you did it with the in Illustrator. So you kind of pick your like repeat cell and you crop to that. Okay, so this is sped up pretty fast because this took about 10 minutes to do, but at this stage, so what I'm doing here is I'm selecting the top tier of the scales because I'm going to copy those and then paste them down at the bottom so that the scales that get cropped off at the bottom are the same scales that get cropped off at the top, so that when you repeat this, it will be seamless and it'll line up. So it's just selecting that top row right there. So then after you have that all selected, then you're going to do layer by copy. If you right click on it, it'll come up. That'll be one of the options. And then, so you'll copy the layer, and then what I've done is I go in and I use select color range, so it's under the select menu up at the top. And then I usually just pick like white just to delete the white out. And then from there, you can see I have the two different, the selection on two different layers. So I'm able to delete all the white out of it, and then I can move the selection that I made down to the bottom and see where it overlaps and where I need to line it up with. So getting rid of the white just helps you be able to see through that top layer to the bottom layer. So then I line it up, and then after I line this up, I will be selecting all the selecting the pixels of that layer. So if you just go over to the layer and right click on it, select pixels will come up. And then I'm going to the bottom layer, which has the original one on it, and I delete that selection. And then this is sped up again, but then I've gone in with the eraser tool and just erased out what I don't want, because that'll be covered up by the copied selection from before. Okay, so at this point you crop your image down to where you want your repeat cell to be, just like you did in Illustrator. So since you copied the first row or the top row of the scales and pasted it down at the bottom, they should line up pretty closely. And if you'll notice in my first attempt, they line up pretty closely. There's a little bit of repeat. So how you test that is you go up to the you go up to filter and you go to offset, and then you can offset it horizontally and vertically. So you'll want to, once you do the top tier, you'll do it vertically so that you can see where it matches up vertically. And then if it's not quite right, then you just tweak the crop using the crop tool. The shortcut for that is just hitting C. So you can use that to just really finesse and fine tune how you have it cropped. And then from there, we're going to do the same thing we did with the top tier scales, but we're going to do it on the side ones so that the two sides match up. So what I'm doing now is I'm just selecting the group of side scales that I want to copy on the other side. So I'm picking, on the left side, I'm picking like diagonal scales that are like all fully there. So I haven't cropped any of these ones off yet. So the idea is that I'll just copy these, move them over, and cover up the ones on the right side that I want to on the, yeah. So those are, so I cover those up, line those up, and then that'll make the lining it up process a lot easier. So same thing again, I select the pixels and then erase out the original layer while hiding the copied layer of scales. So then I just erase all of that. Okay, so then this is what you're going to do once you get that the left side copied over to the right side. Then you're going to crop it down so that it will line up with the repeat. Make sure that you get line it up with the correct, like your pattern is right, because the first attempt I did this, it was off one, so then the repeat wouldn't work. So I had to go back in and do that and cut it all out. So yeah, so I've cropped it down right here, and then once you do that, then you're going to go up to the offset filter again to check your repeat. So offset, and this time you can do, you can leave the vertical one at 0 and just do horizontal. So since you've already lined up the vertical. So now you can kind of zoom in and you can see those little spots where like it doesn't quite match up all the way, but that's fine because we'll just use like the stamp tool and fix that up. Yeah, so then you just use the stamp tool, which the shortcut for it, if you want to use that, is just S, and then you can hold down the Option key. Yeah, Option, and then you can click where you want to sample it from, and then it'll just stamp, like do a copy of like where you sampled it from. So. And then I'm going in, just checking all different places, making sure that things line up, and then I've started to select out what I don't want. So a lot of lighter tones, because I want this to be a texture that could possibly be screen printed. So I use the select color range again, and I go in and really fine tune the selection and what I want to take out of it. And then just a quick test, I went into levels and I just maxed it out all the way to the black setting just to kind of see what that would look like, but it wasn't quite where I wanted it, so gone back in and really fine-tuned that selection before doing this. And so then once I get to a point where I kind of like it, I'll take it and take it into a new file, and I will make sure that it all lines up and it actually repeats, because the worst nightmare you can possibly have is going into production with something like this and then it not lining up, or there being just a tiny minuscule gap. So it's always best to test it, even if you're like, nope, it's right, it's definitely right, because I've had instances before where I thought it was right, and then a few weeks later, when it really needed to be right, it wasn't. Okay, so at this point I've gone back after I made sure that my repeat works, and I'm just refining kind of the selection of like what I want to get rid of in the repeat pattern, because like I said, I want this pattern to be able to be screen printed if I want to. So I have to make sure that I get rid of all the areas I don't want so that it'll be transparent. So I've desaturated it, and then I just keep using the select color range tool, and I just keep refining it. And then once I get it to where I want it to be, so then you go up to, you're going to go up to mode, and you're going to go to grayscale. It doesn't matter what you do, you can either do flatten or don't flatten. I usually do don't flatten, and then I hit discard, and then once you get to that point, then you're going to open up your levels menu by hitting Command L, and then you're going to click the far left eyedropper and click in one of the darkest areas on your pattern. And once you do that, then you go up to, you're going to go to mode, and you're going to go to bitmap. And then once you do that, you select 150, because it'll ask you like diffusion, if you want to make it a diffusion dither, or how you want to like break up the texture. If you want to make it in like little, it basically breaks it up into little dots, so that like if you screen print it or if it's going to be put on apparel, that it can be burned into a screen and then ink can pass through the screen to create that texture. Yeah, so you're going to do that, and then from there you're going to save it as a TIFF, and then you're going to do not a copy, so it's going to be one flat file. It's not going to have layers. Okay, so then once you save your file as a TIFF, as a bitmap TIFF, then you're going to open your file in Adobe Illustrator. So once you do that, we're bringing it into Illustrator because in Illustrator you can open a bitmap grayscale TIFF, and you can change the color of it, so it works well for like if you're doing tech packs for like apparel, or if you're doing, like I said, screen printing, something like that, because you can change the color pretty quickly. So it's easy if you make changes to send to your printer. So right now I'm going through and I'm finding the file. Sorry, I have like a million folders. So I'm opening up the TIFF, and then there's the TIFF, and then you're going to see I'm going to select it, and I drag it, and you can see it's actually transparent. It's just the black areas. So I'm copying it and making sure it repeats again, so I'm double checking myself again from earlier. And then I'm going to delete those small copies that I made, and I'm going to take the original repeat cell, and I'm going to do like I did before, and I'm going to draw a transparent box and make sure that box lines up perfectly with the border of my repeat cell, and I'm going to push that behind the repeat cell. So I'm going in and just checking, making sure that the borders line up, because again, even if it's off by like half a pixel or a pixel, like you'll notice it in the final run when you actually print it. So I just go in there and check real quick and zoom in. And then once that's done, I drag it up to the swatches menu like I did before. Again, make sure that your transparent box is behind your repeat cell, otherwise it won't work. And so then once I have my swatch up there, then I'm trying to pull up my color swatches right now because I want to be able to change the color of this. But okay, so there's my color swatches. I just took it back into the original document, and you can see like all I have to do is click on the color, and it changes the color of the small little dots that actually make up my pattern. And so I've copied it as it is as it is like red, and I've dragged that back up to the swatches menu. So now I have a swatch that is red scales. So I click that and it fills it. So then I can put that over a solid color, and the solid color will show through. So I'm going to draw a shape, and then here I'm going to make it, it's not green, that would be gross, so let's make it yellow. Also, these aren't great colors, but this is just for an example. And then I push that yellow layer back behind the initial red layer, and you can see that the yellow shows through. So that is how you make a repeat pattern with texture. And then again, if you want to change the color, you can always go back in there. And when you pull out your swatch to change the color, make sure you are actually selecting your bitmap TIFF and not the clipping mask, otherwise it won't work. And then save your file and you're all done. And then here's an example of what you can do once you have your finished pattern. I made a camo pattern, and then I have overlaid my initial scale pattern on top of it, and then assigned different colors of scales to different shapes of the camo. So it makes a really cool effect, and like I said, you can use this like if you're going to screen print it or if you want it printed on apparel, that kind of thing. But yeah, overall, pretty happy with how this turned out. The actual scales I'm using in an illustration I'm working on, and then this camo pattern I just kind of made today for fun to put in this video. So I hope you guys like it, and please subscribe and follow me on any of my other social channels. I'm hoping to do another brush pack and texture pack soon, so look out for that on my Gumroad account. All my links for all of my different accounts and my shop will be in the description, so check those out. Thanks. Bye.